The 1960s were a golden era for British motoring. From Minis to Aston Martins, from rally champions to Bond cars, Britain was producing some of the most exciting vehicles on the planet. But here is the truth nobody talks about. For every car that became a legend, there were dozens more that quietly disappeared, overlooked by buyers, ignored by history, and forgotten by time. Today, we are going back to find 10 of those lost gems. And trust me, by the time we reach number 1, you will wonder how the world let it slip away. Let's begin our countdown with number 10. Number 10. Humber Scepter. In 1963, Humber quietly launched the Scepter, a polished executive saloon that most people today have completely forgotten. Positioned at the very top of the Roots Group's ambitious lineup, it arrived with leather seats, a wood veneer dashboard, and twin carburetors, giving it a surprising turn of speed for a British family car. Have you ever heard of this one? Most people completely overlook what the Scepter actually offered at its price point. It was smoother, better equipped, and more refined than many cars history has chosen to celebrate. But the market in 1963 was already packed with Rovers, Rileys, and Woolsleys, all competing for the same discerning British buyer. Then came the Roots Group's mounting financial difficulties, and the Scepter quietly disappeared from British roads without ceremony. It never truly got the credit it deserved. A genuinely polished and forgotten piece of British automotive history. Number 9. Singer Vogue. Here is a name that probably means very little to most people watching today. The Singer Vogue arrived in 1961, a stylish four-door saloon from a brand that had once been a genuinely respected player in British motoring. And this is where things get interesting. The Vogue was sophisticated for its era, offering a refined interior, a rev counter fitted as standard, and bodywork that period observers described as genuinely handsome. Would you have noticed this car on a British street back then? The problem was that Singer was already dying. Absorbed into the Roots empire, it was slowly being starved of investment and identity. The Vogue was left stranded between two worlds, too similar to the Hillman it shared its bones with, yet too expensive to compete purely on value. The Singer Vogue deserved a far better story and a far better future than this. Number 8. Woolsley Hornet. Now here is a name that sounds dignified, because it genuinely was. The Woolsley Hornet arrived in 1961, born from the same revolutionary foundations as the iconic Mini, but dressed in a more formal and upmarket suit. Woolsley wrapped Alec Isigonus's brilliant platform in a refined body, adding a proper boot, a distinctive grille, and that unmistakable illuminated badge on the nose. Have you ever seen one in person? They were genuinely charming little machines. Inside sat leather seating and a polished walnut dashboard, which felt remarkable given what lay underneath. But the Hornet was caught in an awkward middle ground. Mini buyers wanted the original's cheerful simplicity, while drivers seeking real luxury went straight to larger saloons. Trapped between two different audiences, the Hornet was overshadowed by the car it was born from. And that, honestly, is a genuinely sad way to be forgotten. Number 7. Hillman Imp. The Hillman Imp is perhaps the most bittersweet story on this list. Launched in 1963 as Britain's answer to the rear-engined revolution begun by Continental cars, the Imp was built in a brand new factory in Linwood, Scotland, representing major government investment and genuine national ambition. And it was truly clever. An aluminium engine, a rear-mounted layout, and a tilting rear window that doubled as a boot showed real engineering imagination. But that is not the full story. The Imp was rushed to production before it was truly ready, and reliability problems arrived early and damaged its reputation severely. While the Mini simply kept growing in popularity, the Imp could never quite recover. It deserved to be remembered as a piece of genuine British engineering ingenuity. Instead, it became a cautionary tale about the enormous cost of rushing ambition. And that, honestly, is genuinely heartbreaking. Number 6. Bond Equipe GT. Most people, when they hear the name Bond, think of the little three-wheeled economy cars buzzing around post-war Britain. But by 1963, Bond had done something remarkable. They had built a proper sports car. The Bond Equipe GT was a genuine four-seat Grand Tourer, based on the Triumph Herald but clothed in a distinctive fiberglass body that turned heads in ways its donor platform never could. And this is where things get interesting. It was sold alongside Triumph's own products but offered a character that factory cars simply could not match. Small volume production kept numbers exclusive. But in Britain's brutally competitive 1960s car market, exclusivity without financial backing was a death sentence. The Equipe gradually disappeared from dealerships and then from memory. A forgotten British sports tourer that never received the recognition it genuinely deserved. And the next car on this list surprises even more. Number 5. Gilbern Genie. Have you ever heard of a car manufacturer based in Wales? Because in 1966, that is exactly what Gilbern was. Wales's only indigenous car maker quietly produced one of the most interesting grand tourers of the entire decade, and almost nobody outside a small passionate circle ever noticed. The Genie was a proper 4-seat GT, built around a tubular steel chassis and available with Ford or BMC engines depending on specification. It looked confident, modern, and competitive with what mainstream manufacturers were offering at the time. But Gilbern was a tiny operation, hand-building cars in limited numbers with minimal resources. Distribution was sparse. Marketing was almost non-existent. And so the Genie drifted past a motoring public too distracted by bigger names to notice it. Wales had built something genuinely special. The world simply never stopped to see it. And that is a genuinely lasting shame. Number 4. Marcos 1800 GT. If you want to discuss cars that deserved a bigger audience, look no further than the Marcos 1800 GT of 1964. Built around a marine plywood chassis, which sounds unconventional but proved remarkably stiff and effective in practice, the Marcos delivered performance capable of embarrassing far more expensive rivals. The body was low, long, and purposeful, styled by Dennis Adams in a way that looked like nothing else on British roads. And here is where things get deeply unfair. In independent road tests, the Marcos consistently showed handling and speed that left journalists genuinely impressed. But Marcos was tiny and unknown, overshadowed by the glamour of Lotus, which occupied the same performance space with far greater brand recognition. Most buyers never even knew the Marcos existed. Lost in the shadow of a more celebrated rival, it truly deserved a far wider and more appreciative audience. Number 3. Gordon Keeble. In 1964, a small British company did something genuinely audacious. They fitted a powerful Chevrolet V8 engine into a beautiful Italian body designed by the young Giorgetto Giugiaro at Bertone, built a fiberglass shell right here in Britain, and called it the Gordon Keeble. On paper, this car had everything. It was fast, reaching 60 miles per hour in under 8 seconds at a time when that mattered greatly. The styling was clean, modern, and devastatingly elegant. Every road tester who drove it fell in love. But the Gordon Keeble was undone by the oldest enemy of small British manufacturers, which was money. Production costs consistently outran what the selling price could recover, and after just over 100 cars were completed, the company collapsed. A car this accomplished genuinely deserved a longer, better future. Instead, it became perhaps the saddest lost story in British automotive history. Number 2. Ogle SX1000. By 1962, designer David Ogle had created something that genuinely stopped people on the street. The Ogle SX1000 was a compact sports car built on mini mechanical components, but wearing a handcrafted fiberglass body of such striking originality that it appeared to belong to a completely different era. Clean lines, a fastback roofline, and a surprisingly modern cabin made it one of the most visually interesting British cars of the decade. And here is the heartbreaking part. Just as the car was beginning to find its small but passionate audience, David Ogle was killed in a road accident while driving one of his own creations. The company briefly struggled on but never recovered the momentum only he could provide. The SX1000 died with him in spirit. A genuinely beautiful piece of British automotive design, gone before it ever had the chance to be properly discovered. Number 1. Alvis TF21. And here we are. The car that deserved more recognition than any other on this list, and received the least. The Alvis TF21, built in 1966, was the very last automobile produced by Alvis, a company with roots stretching back to the 1920s. And as farewell statements go, it was extraordinary. The TF21 was a genuine Grand Tourer in the truest sense. Built on a traditional separate chassis, carefully clothed in a body by Park Ward, and powered by a smooth 3-litre straight-six engine, it offered something already disappearing from Britain's roads by 1966, real handcrafted luxury. Only 55 were ever built. In a world increasingly obsessed with mass production, Alvis simply continued building cars the way they always had, with patience, precision, and pride. But the economics became impossible to sustain. When the last TF21 left the factory in 1967, an era ended without fanfare or headlines. No announcement. No recognition. Just silence. The Alvis TF21 was arguably the final true expression of traditional British coach-built craftsmanship, and almost nobody in Britain noticed it happening. This was not just a forgotten car. This was a lost piece of Britain itself. And that is our list. 10 British cars from the 1960s that history quietly forgot. But as we have seen today, forgotten does not mean undeserving. Every one of these cars had something genuine to offer, something truly worth remembering. The 1960s gave Britain more than just famous icons. It gave us hidden gems that most people never discovered. Which one surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey through forgotten British motoring history, please hit the like button and subscribe to Britain Rewind. And next time, we are going even deeper.